Okay, in this video, in fractions, we're going to show you how to add simple fractions. Now, it's really important that you've watched the other video, the first video in the introduction to fractions, so you've got some techniques that we'll be using in this video. Okay, so I'm going to do it two ways. I'm going to show you a wee picture on how to add fractions first, and then a structured method. Now, the picture method just to give you an idea of what's actually happening. But when we get to harder fractions, you know, sort of when the denominator's maybe 29 or something, or 19, things like that, we can't draw wee pictures. We want to try and get away from wee pictures and use a method that's quick, straightforward, and easy to use. So we'll show you a picture. I'll swap between the two. We'll do a wee bit of picture, we'll do a wee bit of structure, a wee bit of picture, a wee bit of structure, and I think I'll do maybe 3 examples. Okay, so in terms of the wee picture, how do we go about adding these two things together? Now, you probably know the answer at the top of your head for this, but it's important that you look at the what we're actually doing rather than just, I know the answer. Okay, so a half, what does that actually mean? Well, using the bar method, here's my bar, and if I half that in 2, then that represents 1/2. So that's a half. And we're going to add on to that, we'll draw another exactly the same bar, okay, exactly the same size of bar, but this time we're going to put it into 4 bits. And I'll shade in that bit. And that's 1/4. Now, it's important to understand, to be able to add fractions together, they have to have the same denominator. They have to be split into the same portions, if you like. So this is 1/4, this is 1/2. So they're different sizes. Look at the size of the half, size of the quarter. We need to put these into the same sizes before we can add them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the half bar at the top. Okay, now this is meant to be the same size as this, and we'll put the half in. And directly underneath, we'll put the quarter. And there's a quarter directly underneath it. So this is a half, and this is a quarter. So let me just shade it in. Okay. Now, oh sorry, a quarter. Okay. So there we go, we've got a nice wee picture of a half and a quarter. But as I said before, we can't add these together, we have to make them into the same thing. So I'm going to change the bar at the top so it's out of quarters. So I'm going to put a line in here, there's already a line at the half, and there's already put a line in here. And now I've made them the same sizes, and now we can add these together. So adding these together, that's 1/4 plus another quarter. So this top bit can be written as 2/4. So a half is the same as 2/4. Now in the first video that was equivalent fractions. And this one here, well, this is already in quarters, so we don't have to do anything with that. And because they have the same denominator, i.e. the same sizes, same proportion, quarters and quarters, then we can now add these, we're allowed to add them. So that's 1, 2, 3. So we've now got 2/4 plus a quarter, and that equals 3/4. Okay. So I picked that one because it was nice and simple and easy to draw. So there's my picture. Hopefully you followed that. Let's try and go to a structured method that we don't have to use a picture. Well, we have to use things that we've already been taught. So hopefully you already know a thing called the lowest common multiple. You need to know that before you can add and subtract fractions. So what's the lowest common multiple of 2 and 4? Well, what does that actually mean? It means what's the lowest number that both 2 and 4 can go into without leaving a remainder. And the answer is 4. So we're going to change a half into quarters, and we don't have to change that one because that's already in quarters. So we'll have to change these fractions into quarters, and this one's already in quarters, so that's okay. So I have to do it for the half. Now, you can look at your wee picture. I've done it over there. We should know that a half is the same as 2 quarters, but how do we get that if we don't have the wee picture? Well, this is how we go about it. What do we have to do to 2 to get to 4? We have to multiply by 2. So the connection here is 2 times 2 is 4. And if whatever we do to the bottom, we must do to the top, so 2 ones are 2. And that's how we get it. And we can now just add these together. Nice and easy. Okay, and that's how we go about it. So let's look at another one. Now, I'm deliberately picking ones that's easy to draw. I'm not picking really hard ones, because if I picked hard ones, I'd be here all day trying to draw wee pictures and get them right and all that type of idea. So we're deliberately making or picking fractions that are quite easy to draw. So let's look at one that we have 2/3 plus 5/6. Okay, so that's 2/3 plus 5/6. Again, we'll look at the picture format first. So let's draw a bar. And remember, when I'm drawing these bars for any fraction, it's the same size of bar, even though it might not look it because I'm just doing it freehand. So I need 2/3. So split it into 3. Remember from your first video, the denominator tells you how many bits you're splitting the bar into. So I'm splitting it into 3. And I'm only interested in 2 out of the 3, so that's 2/3. Okay. Plus, well, this one's a wee bit trickier. Again, roughly the same size of bar, and I have to put it in the 6s. 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not quite all the same there, but they're meant to be. Okay, and I'm looking for 5, 6 then. So I'm looking for 5 out of 6. And there we go, 5, 6. So, remember, we can only add fractions if they have the same sizes, okay? These are thirds, these are 6s, they're different, so we have to make them the same. So, that's where our equivalent fractions come in. So in terms of the picture, let's draw the bar again. We have to split it into thirds, so that's roughly thirds, and we'll shade 2/3 in. And the same size of bar down below for this one, and we need it into 6s. And there's 6s. Isn't drawn very well, but it's as good as I can do it. Okay, so we need 5 out of the 6 shaded in. And there we go. Now, to add them, we need the same sizes, so we need to change these thirds into 6s. So I'm going to put a line down there, that's now 4 of them, 5 and 6 of them. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've changed the thirds into 6s, and well, that was 1/3, and we've now changed it into that was now 2/3. We're dealing with 2/3. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's changed into 4 6s. And we had 5, 6. Well, we don't have to change that, that was already in 6s anyway, so that's 5, 6. And now we can add them together. So we've got 4 over 6 plus 5 over 6, and that gives me 9 over 6. That's one answer. But we tend to simplify fractions, so anytime you've got a fraction that can simplify, we simplify it. So highest common factor between 9 and 6, what goes into 6 and 9 without leaving a remainder? 3. So divide 3 into 9 goes 3 times, 3 into 6 goes twice. and then we change it into a mixed fraction. We don't tend to leave it as top heavy. We tend to put it into the whole part and the fraction part. So 2 into 3, so I'll just do this in case you've not watched the other video. 2 into 3 goes 1, remainder 1, so that gives me 1. Now that remainder 1 is a half because we're dividing by 2, so it's 1 half we've got, 1 half, and that's your answer. Okay, so that's how you do the fraction picture format. So let's go back to the structured method because we really want to be able to do this. And when we do this, we'll compare the picture and the structure. So we can't add fractions unless the denominators have the same value, same size. So we have to look for the lowest common multiple between 3 and 6. And hopefully you know that is 6 itself. So I have to change 2/3 into 6. And we already have 5, 6, so we don't have to do anything with that because that's already in 6. So to make that equivalent, 2/3 equivalent into 6's, then 3, what I have to do to 3 to get to 6, I have to multiply by 2. So 2 2's are 4. So 4 6's are the same as 2/3. And that's what essentially what we're doing in this wee picture in here. Okay, so its lowest common multiple essentially is this wee picture here. And now we can add them together. That's 9/6. And again, from here and here, it's the same idea. We just simplify, divide top and bottom by 3, and then change it into a mixed fraction. 2 and 3 goes 1. That's one whole bar if you like. Excuse me. And the remainder 1, so that'll be 1 half. And that's your answer. So I'm hoping that you're picking this technique up. I'll do one more, and that's us done adding simple fractions. Now in the next video, what I'll be doing is subtraction, and I think what I'll do is I'll keep these same fractions, but we'll subtract them rather than add them and see how we go on. Okay, so my final one that I want to do with you. Let's go for 4/5 plus a half. So 4/5 plus a half. Okay. Well, again, denominators are different, therefore we can't simply add them. We have to have the same denominator, same sizes. So let's draw a wee picture for the bars, or the bar for 4/5. Well, here's my bar, and I have to divide it into 5 bits. So remember, the denominator tells me how many bits I'm going to have. I'm going to have 5 out the whole bar, plus we need a half, a bar. I'm just going to be that there. Let me fill in this one. 4/5, so that means we need 4 of them. So there's my 4. There's my 4/5, and there's my half. As before, let's draw the bars on top of each other. So that's my bar for this one. Let's put it into 5ths. 1, 2, 3, 4. And shade in these 4. So that's 4/5. And let's do the half one. Well, half would be around about here. Shade that in. So that's my half. Now, we're going to put them into. That'll be a bit tricky, isn't it? So, we've got a 5 and a 2, and we have to have the same sizes. So, since we've done the last 2, we really need the lowest common multiple between 2 and 5. So, this is where your other work in first year comes in. Lowest common multiple. Now we've already done it in the last couple using the structured method on this side. So we'll use the idea in my head to get the same amount of bars. Well, lowest common multiple between 2 and 5 is 10. So if I split these into 10s, so I'm going to half these ones. So instead of having 5, I'm now going to have 10 of them. And the bottom bar, if I put that into tens, well, just follow the lines down. We already have that bar already there because that's the half. Okay, now they're now tenths, so each wee bit is 1/10. So 4/5 is the same as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8/10. That's my 8/10. And my half, well, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's 5/10. So we've really got 8/10 plus 5/10. That's exactly the same as adding 4/5 plus a half. That comes to 13/10, and that's top heavy. So let's put it into a mixed fraction. 10 into 13 goes once, and 3 left over, so that's 3/10. And we can't simplify that, that's as far as it can go. Okay. So you can see how the picture one's going to get a wee bit more complicated because we had a 5 and a 2, so it was 10 wee bits we had. And you can imagine if I had really big numbers like, as I said before, 29 and 19, almost impossible to draw a wee picture for that, or it would take forever. So we try and get away from this method. Nice to show you what's happening at the beginning, but then we go to the structured method, which doesn't really change too much. Even if it's hard numbers, the ideas are very, very easy. Okay, so structured method. Lowest common multiple between 2 and 5, well that's 10. So we're putting things all into tenths. And this time I have to change the two of them. What do I have to multiply 5 by to get to 10? That's 2, so 2 4s are 8. But I have to multiply 2 by to get to 10, that's 5, so 5 1s are 5. And then we just add them together, which is just the same as the bottom bits down here, but a lot quicker. Okay, and that's how you add simple fractions. Now I would encourage you, rather than just looking at this, make sure you've looked at the first video to get the idea of equivalent fractions and going from top heavy to a mixed fraction, okay, or an improper fraction if you like, into a mixed fraction. Okay, that's the video done that. The next one I'll do subtracting fractions.